thank you to all of you out there. And hopefully, what I share with you today will kind of bring you aware of some of the things that are going on with AI and ransomware and some steps that you can take to hopefully prevent that within your organization. So just a little bit about myself. I know I got a nice little intro there, but hi, I'm Mary DeGrazia. I'm located out in Tucson, Arizona. I'm a director at IDX, where we work with companies, much like yourself as a consultant, responding to ransomware events. I've probably worked hundreds of these cases when they first started coming out. I remember seeing that transition from Bitcoin mining into ransomware, and things just really exploded. And I'm also a certified SANS instructor. So I teach a ransomware course, and I'm in the process of developing and authoring an AI course, which should hopefully be released later on this year. And it's going to be applied AI for digital forensics. Okay, so we've already seen some stats today, but I just wanted to highlight and underscore, ransomware in healthcare, the kind of like, why should you care about what I'm going to talk about right now? And according to a recent FBI report that came out, unfortunately, healthcare has more cyber threats than any other critical infrastructure. And that was something that the panel that Rob Lee was doing earlier touched on. Unfortunately, 67% of healthcare organizations are going to experience a ransomware attack. And I think with the advent of AI, we're going to just see that number climb, because that's already 40% above where it was last year. 25.6 million healthcare records have been impacted. And this is one of the reasons, unfortunately, why threat actors are targeting the healthcare industry. In a lot of the ransomware cases I work, I will see them actually run searches for and look for PII data. And while healthcare have a ton of it, so it's a really rich environment for those threat actors to come after that data. When we talk about the financial impact, we have 5.7 million is the average demand that is being made for healthcare companies, and an average payout of almost $1 million. And when we get to the negotiation section in my talk, we'll kind of talk about that as well. So I mentioned PII is a reason that healthcare is targeted by ransomware threat actors. Why else are you being targeted? Well, unfortunately, with healthcare, it is literally life or death, or it can be life or death, to get those systems, those impacted systems, up and running within your environment. And ultimately, these threat actors, they're looking for a payday. So the more impact they can have on an organization, the more likely it is that they're going to hit their payday and they're going to be making money. So, it's not like the Jamba Juice that I can run out and get at the gym. If they get hit with ransomware, maybe I don't get my Jamba Juice for the day. But healthcare, you provide a pretty critical service. And without those, bad things are happening. So the way that I'm approaching the talk today is I'm going to walk you through a shortened ransomware life cycle. We have a short amount of time with you today, so we're just going to focus on these 5 areas. And I'm going to explain how AI is being leveraged in each one of these, as well as, just a basic background of what each one of these steps are in the life cycle. So if you're looking at this and you're like, what is this lateral movement and privilege escalation? I don't know what that means. I'm going to be covering it, and I'm going to talk about how AI is being used to conduct each one of these phases. Now, there are some that I'm not covering, like remediation and reconnaissance, but like I said, our time is limited, so we're just really going to jump right into these core and these key areas to talk about it. And the first one we're going to start out with is initial access. How does that threat actor get into your environment to begin with, before they even launch the ransomware? Now, we used to see that this would take several weeks to happen. Nowadays, we're seeing a move from this initial access pretty quickly to the ransomware deployment, sometimes within a couple of days to hours. So how are threat actors getting in? Well, they will leverage things like phishing emails. And I'm sure most of you have seen phishing emails. You've been tested by your company on phishing emails and probably pretty familiar with that. Other ways they get in would be to find an externally facing system that basically has that door open to the internet, and we call that RDP. So a lot of times RDP, the remote desktop protocol, can be exploited as well to get in. Vulnerabilities, there are several different ways that they can get in. But today, I'm going to focus on phishing emails because this is something where we are really seeing AI being leveraged because AI, and I'm the part of AI I'm going to be talking about today is going to be what are called LLMs, large language models. Okay, so they're the ones that you chat with, Chat GPT, Claude, they help you with the reports, they help you with an email. Maybe you're crafting an email and you think, okay, that sounds a little bit harsh. Help me lighten up the tone a little bit before I send this out. That's really what I'm going to be focusing here on this talk. And since the advent of ChatGPT, there has been a 49% increase in the rise of phishing emails, and over 1,200 of those have been linked to AI. So it's a pretty high number. 54% of our ransomware cases begin with a phish, and it has a 54% success rate when AI is used to craft those emails. The amount of time that it takes a threat actor to craft an email using AI is 5 minutes versus 16 hours for a human to come up with a phishing campaign. So it's not just the email itself, but it's the phishing campaign in total. And that was done by a study by IBM. It was the 5-5, they call the 5 minutes with AI, giving it 5 prompts to do that. And unfortunately, like I mentioned before, healthcare is one of those targeted industries, and it's one of the top 5 industries to get phished. So when we talk about AI phishing, the community has come up with this concept of 4 pillars of AI phishing. We have our data analysis. So the AI is being leveraged to go out and do reconnaissance on a particular target. So let's say someone wants to target me with a phishing email. Instructions are given to the AI to be like, hey, go look up Mary, see what Mary's all about. I want to write a tailored and personalized phishing email for her because that is what gets us to click on the links. So if I'm in finance, something that comes in related to an invoice is more likely to get my click than if I'm in finance and maybe it's talking about patient records. Like, why would I click on that? I'm working in the finance department. And vice versa. If I'm a doctor and something comes in related to an invoice, I'm probably not going to click on that. So the more tailored that a phishing email can be, the more effective it is that it is going to lure that user into clicking on it, okay? So the AI is being leveraged to go out and to do research, to find background information about that person, about where it is that they work, hobbies that they're into, current events coming up. You're all attending this conference. What if a phishing email was crafted that said, hey, you need to, check in for the event, or we've updated some things. Click here, because they knew that this was going on and you had registered for it because maybe you tweeted something out on your social media about it. So the AI is being used to personalize these phishing emails based off of that research. And now, because the AI is writing them, it can do a good job with grammar, spelling. So for non-English writers, maybe there's somebody in Russia that is trying to compose a phishing email, they can use an LLM or AI to craft that. And now it's not going to have those grammar errors. It's not going to have spelling errors. Some of those telltale signs that we used before are no longer going to work. And then once that's done, we have a scale and automation that can happen because they can do it in 5 minutes versus 16 hours. Instead of just targeting one person, they can target the entire company, more companies. So we have just scale and automation that can happen with this. Okay, so you may be thinking, hey, if I went out to ChatGPT and asked it to write a phishing email, it's not going to do it, right? They put guardrails on these systems so that they don't tell you things like, how do I cook up meth? That's supposed to be, the gold standard in when you've kind of jailbroken a model. It told me how I can make, meth or crack and, all these things. So if you go out and you just try and ask an AI like ChatGPT to make a phishing email, it's not going to do it because it has guardrails. But the hacker community out there has made basically uncensored models, and you might hear some of these names like Worm GPT, Fraud GPT, and Darkbert, that will do these type of things because they have those guardrails removed. So the threat actors are definitely leveraging these to get things done. Okay, so here I have actually taken an example to show you how this works. And I'm using something called Open Web UI and a model called DeepSeek. And I'm going to go in and I am going to ask DeepSeek basically, hey, I want you to go in and I want you to create a phishing email. And I'm going to use a fictitious person here, Dr. House. So you're probably familiar with him. If you've ever seen the show, it's a great show. So fictitious character, I want you to go out and I want you to do some research and I want you to craft a phishing email uh, for Gregory House. Okay, so now this AI model is going out and it's searching the web. It's doing that data reconnaissance. It's trying to see what information it can find. So it's searching, as it's searching the web, we can see here it's looking at phishing techniques, it's looking for phishing pretexts and medical credential harvesting lures that can be used to craft this particular email. So it's going to go out, it's going to search the web, it's going to find all of this information right here. And you can see it's searched 28 sites where it's pulling together all of this information basically to craft this email right here. So here we have it, a phishing email that was made in less than 2 minutes. AI is going out, doing the research and crafting it. It has the name of the hospital. It's talking about an advanced diagnostic portal. So at your company, maybe it can determine what you typically use at your companies. So you're more likely to click on it if it's found a product that you use. And it's like, this is a template, so insert your malicious link here. But this is just an example of how quickly this can happen with AI, and that is how they are able to scale up and to do these things moving forward. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was coding. AI is something that I use every day when I'm doing my coding. Now, my core job function, I am not a coder, but I have a computer science background and I've been coding for many, many years. Okay, so I leverage AI to kind of work with me. And what I can do now with AI as far as coding, I can get done in a day, which may have taken me a week now because it can write a function for me. I can kind of piece that together and I work with it. So there's this concept coming out called vibe coding that developers are using, basically where they just ask an LLM to do something, write me a Tetris game. And then the AI just goes off, it writes a Tetris game. Maybe it comes back with an error. They give the error to the AI. The AI works with the error, figures out the code. And basically, with vibe coding, you don't even look at the code. You're just trusting the AI to do it. Well, in our industry, we always say, what can be used for good can be used for evil. You can bet that if I'm using it for coding and to help me automate my task in my daily work life, hackers are doing the same thing too. And it's called vibe hacking. And that is directly going to tie into these other phases that we're going to talk about because they are leveraging this concept of vibe hacking throughout the entire attack cycle related to AI and to ransomware. Okay, so now we're going to go away from that initial access for our phishing emails and we're going to move into our lateral movement and privilege escalation. So in this part of the phase, once a threat actor has made that initial access with that AI convincing email, they have a user that clicked on that link. Remember, it's like 54% chance, right? That's going to be clicked on. Once they get into that environment, now they want to figure out, okay, where are the crown jewels at? Where is that PII data at? Because I want to go grab that. Where are those backups at? Because I want to go destroy them. So maybe the person that clicked the phishing email is the receptionist working in the front office. So they come in through that system and now they want to go say, okay, where is the server at? Where is that file share server at where they store all that information? Where is that domain controller at? Because I know that domain controller that's responsible for running all of these systems within the environment, that's going to have some creds on it. And they want to get administrative credentials so that they can use those to access things like the backups and destroy them and to be able to run their tools. And throughout this process, this entire process, AI is being used. A report recently came out by Anthropic, and Anthropic, if you're not familiar with them, they have basically a competitor to ChatGPT called Claude. And Claude has something called a Claude Code, which will basically act as an agent for a developer. So they released a report where they had found that an attacker had created an attack system based on Kali Linux and loaded it up with Claude code. And they leveraged this basically to do all of their bidding throughout this stage and previous stages as well. I didn't have a bullet point on it, but the reconnaissance phase where they're basically figuring out who they need to target and who has what ports exposed on the internet. They're using it to actually scan the internet to look at those results and to help them determine who they should target. Once they come in through that phishing email to the maybe the receptionist or the front desk, they then are leveraging the AI to help them move laterally throughout the environment, to do scanning, to do AD attacks on the network, and to do that privilege escalation. Basically, that AI is their assistant. They're like, hey, wait a minute, I just tripped the AV. This is what it's saying. I want you to modify this command so that I can get past the AV. Boom. AI takes a look at it, comes back, it gives them a new command to run. Hey, okay, I just saw all of these systems. Which one do you think is going to be the best one for me to go to next? Okay. So basically, it is working hand in hand with the AI in order to be able to get through this lateral movement and privilege escalation phase of it, leveraging these agents on their behalf. Okay, so they've made it through the initial access, they've done their lateral movement, they've escalated their privileges. Now they're going to do two things. They are basically going to get ready to deploy their ransomware within the environment and do their data exfiltration. A lot of threat actors sometimes don't even make it to this encryption phase of the ransomware cycle. They will just get a database. They will get very important or critical information and say, you know what, this is worth $1 million of a loan. I don't have to encrypt this entire environment and deal with managing encryption keys and blah, 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 blah. I'll just, hold this data hostage and demand my ransom or, my money based off of the data that I had. So this is really a key part because when I first started working these ransomware cases many, many years ago, the exfiltration part wasn't even heard of. And now today, we're looking for it in every investigation. Okay, you had a ransomware attack. Okay, this didn't just start with the ransomware. That's actually one of the last steps in the whole cycle. There's a good chance they probably took some of your data as well. Okay, so how is AI being leveraged for this step? In that Anthropic report, they cover how AI is basically used to sift and filter through the massive amounts of data that are collected. We've seen 1 or 2 terabytes of data that are exfiltrated out. Now, the AI is basically programmed, I'm going to point it at that root directory. And instead of me having to go through and looking through every single one of those directories, every single one of those files, okay, this might have passwords in it, this is PII. Now that data can basically be ingested into the AI the same way you might throw a Word document or a PDF file into ChatGPT and have it summarize it for you. They're using it in the same way. What can be used for good can be used for evil as well. So not only is the AI going through all of this data, now it's picking out what's important, and it is providing the threat actor with a customized ransom note based off of all of that data, as well as what is called a profit plan. Look at this. It goes through all the data. And this is just an example or basically a mock-up by Anthropic of basically what it looked like on their end when they were doing their investigation. Now, they're not going to show us what it really looked like, but this gives you an idea of what the AI was doing for the threat actor. It's like, hey, I just went through all of this data. This is everything I found, the financial data, the wages, your donor base. Okay, how can you make money? The AI is giving this profit plan to the threat actors. And it's like, this is how you can make money. You can go for direct extortion. You're going to go ahead and do this based off the wages I found. You can probably ask for this much. Guess what? I found their cybersecurity policy too. That has a $1 million cap. So right off the bat, you know that you can at least get $1 million for them because that's going to be their cyber payout from this. So it's going through all that data, and based on that data, it's coming up with profit plans for them. It's creating ransomware notes, and then they can always leverage that in the negotiation phase with the chatbot, which is what we'll be talking about in a little bit here. Okay, so they've used the AI to get through this. get through all that data. Now they're going to do the encryption. And the encryption part, this is where they tip their hat, which is why it's one of the last things they do, because as soon as they do that, that is where you lose access to your systems and you know that something's happened. And that's why exfiltration usually happens before that step. And threat actors are absolutely using AI to create code and to create the payloads. Okay, so this is also going back to that report by Anthropic. Okay, what they said when they were, investigating this was basically the most striking finding is that actors seemingly complete dependency on AI to develop functional malware. What this tells us in the industry is this significantly lowers that barrier to entry for someone to become a threat actor. Now they just can have AI develop the malware for them, to develop that ransomware right within there. Okay, without that AI assistance, they would have most likely failed to produce a working ransomware. So AI played a key phase and a key part in making this happen. It would help them, readjust it based on any errors that they're getting. It wasn't working, the encryption wasn't happening. Without AI, it wouldn't have happened. And unfortunately, in this particular case, the threat actor was targeting 17 distinct organizations, including healthcare. So once again, we have that tie-in with ransomware, AI, and healthcare, unfortunately. Here's an example. This is a screenshot taken from the dark web of basically a threat actor using AI to develop ransomware and then sell it on the dark web. And during the course of their investigation, they were able to make a link off of various things that they had used Claude basically to create this ransomware payload. And now it's for sale out on the dark web as well. We also just recently, at the end of last month, found something called prompt lock. Okay, and what is really scary about this one is prompt lock writes its own attack code in real time because the AI is actually part of the payload. So this is creating a unique variation for every victim. So instead of just dropping down an executable that we can look for throughout the environment, basically AI is using scripts as it goes and it works with this ransomware. So truly the first AI ransomware. Now researchers found this uploaded onto GitHub, not GitHub, sorry, VirusTotal, and they think it's a proof of concept, but I think this is really telling to see where things are going in our landscape of ransomware. We're going from threat actors just using tools and asking it coding questions to actually having AI, write its own attack code in real time as it's encrypting. So not good, right? Not good. So proof of concept uploaded to VirusTotal, but this is a sign of things to come. Okay, so the next phase we have here is our extortion and negotiation. So this is the final piece. They've gotten your data, they've encrypted your environment, and now they are going to extort you and try and get as much money from you as they can. And that brings us, to our negotiation piece. And the example for today is a group called the Global Group. Now, threat actors, they actually run these like businesses. They are kind of concerned with, I guess, good customer support, right? They're looking for a faster response time. If you've ever gone through a negotiation process of a ransomware case, it is not something where you're going to get the keys or pay that ransomware usually within 24 hours. It can take a week or two because typically you're working with somebody that lives in an entirely different time zone, okay? So I might be out here in Tucson, Arizona, and the person I'm negotiating with is, halfway around the world. So that means during my working hours, we might engage with a threat actor. Well, maybe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or noon. I probably won't get an answer until I come into work the next day, sync up with my team. We're going to respond back to the threat actor, and then they come online again, during their daytime work hours, respond to me. So it can be a very slow back and forth. Well, they are now having negotiation panels that are powered by chatbots. So now these chatbots can respond quickly, providing you, AKA their customer, with great customer service because now you're getting faster response time. Okay, it allows our non-English speakers to engage more effectively because they are using a large local language model in order to chat with you very smoothly in English because as we know, AI or large local language models are very good at speaking languages. Some of them can support, 13, 14, 15 different languages, okay? So here is an example from the global group of their AI chatbot. Now I had to kind of blow it up big to fit on the screen here, but I think you get the idea. On the right-hand side here, we have basically the disclosure time. If you don't pay, this is when your data is going to be released. Okay, and we have an AI chatbot that is interacting with you and overseeing this negotiation process as it is happening, okay? And here's an example. What happens if you don't pay that? Well, your information could potentially end up on a data leak site. And the way that Global Group works is AI actually helped them build the entire infrastructure around this. So on here, I have a couple of examples taken directly from the health industry. So you can see here, I blurted out because this isn't really a name and shame, but we have a lot of private information about patients, insurance policy numbers, 1 terabyte of private patient information. So once again, AI is helping them facilitate all of this in the background, building out the infrastructure, the chat bots, deploying the ransomware, all within the environment. Okay, so I'm sorry for all the doom and gloom, right? I just spent my time talking about all the ways that AI is used with ransomware, what we need to be looking out for. But as they were discussing in the panel today, when it comes to our protection tips against AI, it really comes down to a lot of these basic things that need to be put into place. MFA is one of those things that we're always at IDX telling customers, hey, make sure that you have that MFA because when it comes to phishing emails, that's one of the things that we see the most is MFA is not enabled on an account. Boom, they click on that phishing email, they get within the environment. Email authentication in here, I'm really just talking about those spam filters and different checks that can be done to keep those from coming into the environment at the same time. And then we're going to use AI basically to fight AI. And a lot of this comes down to like machine learning for EDR solutions and antivirus and all those good things. We need our vendors to be keeping up on that and to be leveraging the same kind of tools and techniques, but in a good way that our threat actors are using in a bad way. And then, of course, security training, training your people not to click those phishing emails, what to look for, especially now that they're getting so effective and so targeted within the environments. We really need to be very careful on what we're clicking on, and that comes down to training and what to be aware of, because the tried and true hey, look for the bad grammar just isn't going to cut it anymore. And then zero trust. Don't trust anything in that environment. Require that authentication. And so, just keep vigilant, get the basics down, and, we will continue on our march against AI. Okay, so thank you all for your time today. This is my contact information. If you have any questions or you want any of the resources that I referenced today, I know I didn't put all the links to all the different articles and everything, but I'd be happy to share those with you as well. And hopefully I can help you stay vigilant. Our healthcare providers, we love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's so awesome. I mentioned in a comment, I don't like hearing how adversaries have so many capabilities because, of course, it's scary and it's like, oh, doom and gloom, as you mentioned, like, oh, what are we going to do? One of the things I constantly mention again, you brought it up at the very beginning, was the ability or accuracy that phishing emails are not coming to us, because you're right. Culturally, we told everybody, look for the grammar errors, the things that don't make sense. Like that's your telltale sign. If you see that, report, delete, whatever the case may be. But now that's no longer the case. What would you say would be your biggest? I know it's awareness, but for those outside of here, or those you talk to, if somebody asks you the personal question, like what is your response to them about how exactly to go about that? Because honestly, in my mind, I'm reporting everything because I have no idea what's bad or good anymore. And I don't want to do that because that doesn't help anybody. But what's a solid option there?
You know what? I know it's hard to believe, but picking up the phone and calling someone or shooting them a DM on Teams, we just had an email come through the other day that was like, hey, go look at your, paycheck stub here. And our company, it just did get bought out. So I just shot a team member. I was like, hey, is this the new payment system that we're using? They're like, oh, yeah. Didn't you attend the last all hands meeting, Mary? Didn't you hear them talk about that? I'm like, so I think, when we see an email come in, I mean, just reach out to someone on DM. Hey, did you send this to me? Is this something I should be expecting? Is this a vendor that we work with? I know we all like to just silo ourselves sometimes. And sometimes just picking up the phone and calling someone or DMing them on Teams or Slack or what have you can go a long ways for that.
I have to say, selfishly, I love hearing that answer because I know myself, I always blurt out what I think is the best case. And when I hear somebody, an expert in the field like you, who support that one, it makes me feel a lot better. Because that's usually what I tell people. I'm like, hey, in today's world, I'm trusting nothing at face value. Trust nothing, verify everything. It's I do. I tell people to find an alternate method of communication to get back to the person, because we didn't talk about it in any of these, but like we talk about Beck, business email compromise. What you don't want to do is send an email back to the email that sent you and that's already compromised. And that's a whole nother can of worms for a different conversation. But it is good to kind of hear a little bit of reassurance. And then the other question I have is, you mentioned using AI tools to fight back. Are we able, or organizations able, to start looking at ways to implement AI to fight back against those really well-crafted phishing emails? And what about prompt lock? Like, is like how do we start defending against that? I know you had that list of things that we could do, but that seems scary enough by itself.
It really does. And this is where, it's really important to have conversations with your vendors because, honestly, looking at the healthcare sector, you're probably not going to have a dedicated person on staff that's going to develop an AI solution for you. You're probably going to be looking at what's out there within the market. You're going to be wanting to talk to the vendors that you're working with. How are they keeping up with these trends? What are they doing? Especially when it comes to, that gateway, the spam filtering, look at their demos, see what they're doing, talk to other people out in the industry, see what tools that they're using that have worked effectively, for their particular industry out there. Because, what I do a lot of local development with AI, and it can be very expensive. You have to have GPUs and things of that nature. So usually companies, when we start talking about fighting AI with AI, I'm really kind of talking about, vendors implementing it, doing the machine learning, keeping up on what's going out there within the industry. So I think the consumers, or, the healthcare industry out there, they should be having those conversations with them and looking at these different products to kind of help them secure, get shored up more.
I love it. Again, Mary, thank you so much for taking the time to come and enlighten us all. For anybody that has any questions for Mary whatsoever, the ones that pertain to the presentation you gave or ones that just pop in your head later on, again, don't hesitate to reach out to her directly. She posted all the information, or post a question in here. And like I said, we're going to gather up all those questions and send them to the speakers and then provide that FAQ for everybody as well. But again, now's the time to answer or ask any questions you would possibly like. Again, Mary, thank you so much.